Hey everyone, it's Selwen here, bringing you the Marksmanship Hunter. Now, just like Beast Mastery, we haven't gotten a great deal of changes. We did get a handful of changes in our talents, quite meaningful ones at that, but nothing too big. We still have the same old playstyle, right? The heavy focus on aim shots, the machine gun ability that is rapid fire that I hate personally. It's a completely subjective thing. I just find it so goddamn silly. But yeah, it still is pretty much the same spec. We have a very good unpruned abilities, and again, a couple of changes in our talents, and some pretty good Covenant abilities. So let's dig into it. So, unpruned abilities, what did we get? Well, Killshot. Killshot is amazing, and I don't think that anyone is going to complain about having this spec. This on Beast Mastery was already pretty good. This in Marksmanship Hunter, it's even better. It fits the fantasy perfectly, and I'm really glad to have this back. And unlike Beast Mastery, we do get talents to improve this, and we'll get to those in a minute. We also getting a binding shot now made baseline, so you no longer have to talent into this, and it's good, right? I binding shot is quite good for the root. I've been doing Torghast a lot as Marksmanship Hunter as well, and it does wonders there. You know, it's a type of solo content, so it does absolute wonders there. We do get the talent now to replace the old binding shot to just reduce 20% of the damage that we take after 8 seconds after rooting the target. So it's a extra utility that is baseline, so you don't have to lose the talent to talent into that, and it helps a lot when you're playing without a pet, which is practically always. We also getting Hunter's Mark. Now, unlike BM, you're pretty much used to using this ability anyway in BFI. It's a little bit different from the one we currently have, as it's not granting focus. But it still is some things, increasing your damage by 5%, and you still have to use it on a priority target on bosses and stuff like that. The only annoying thing I don't like about Hunter's Mark is having to constantly place it. But it's a thematic ability of hunters. It's just above. I just hate having to constantly place it when in a dungeon and stuff like that. We also getting Eyes of the Beast, which is a work in progress. So it's not really working right now, so I cannot really show you, which is quite sad. We're also getting Trank Shot back, which is pretty good, extra utility, so that's always nice, especially in Mythic Plus. This can do some pretty cool things. As BM, I actually forgot to mention this, but in BM wasn't a big deal because you could have this on Spirit Beasts, so having this baseline again is just extra utility. So again, pretty much that covers our improved abilities. All of your abilities are essentially working in the same way. The spec still pretty much feels the same thing, just the addition of Killshot is indeed pretty good for your execute phases, and again it makes Marksman a little bit more enjoyable there. So let's talk about the talents. Now talents is where we have a couple of changes. So here on our first tier, Master Marksman is now a very uninspiring talent. I was actually, when I saw this, I was like, really? It's not just providing your aim shots and an additional 25% chance to deal a crit, which is it's good. I mean, critting with aim shots is all that you want, right? All you want is aim shots, and critting more is always welcomed. I just find it odd by how boring it actually is for a talent. It's just here take some crit and go away, right? It kind of feels a little bit weird, so they might iterate on that. But the good thing about it is that it might open up this tier a little bit more than the current Master Marksman, even though something like Serpent Sting, which personally I like, it's just clunky in the way that the spec works, because you kind of want to use this to spread, right? To just spread on targets. Let's see if I can put this, to spread on targets. But the issue with this is that you have not necessarily a very busy, gameplay rotation, But you do have a lot of rules in terms of having to use an aim shot and then having to use an arcane shot or a multi-shot with the procs and stuff like that, and then focus. So having to keep Serpent Sting up, for me, I find it way too clunky and a little bit, too cluttersome, in our rotation. So that's kind of my issue with Serpent Sting, even though this tier might be more open now. A Murderer of Crows, is still pretty good as well. Numbers will kind of decide what one will be best, even though I'm probably leaning still to Master Marksman. But again, we shall see. I'm not here to talk about numbers, just talking about how it feels, and picking a talent that just gives you crit feels kind of crap, let's be honest. Feels kind of bad. So in our second tier here, everything's still the same. I just have to point out the overall nerfs that are going on in Shadowlands, which is the reduction on targets on AoE ability. So for example, Barrage, I always forget how to pronounce it correctly, is now only hitting 8 targets, which is not a huge deal. It's just a little bit weird because this is just such a spray ability, and having a target cap just feels odd. Then you have Explosive Shot, which also has a target cap of 6 targets. And I just gotta say, this is not something specific to Shadowlands because the ability is essentially the same. Why can we not have the old Explosive Shot back? Okay, I loved Explosive Shot back in, Wrath. It was such a satisfying ability. Back then it wasn't the survival spec, but it was such a cool ability. And having to wait 3 seconds for it, I'm just the only one that finds that a little bit annoying and weird. Why can we not fire this ability and then get, 2 or 3 explosions for about the same damage and have the same cooldown and stuff like that, so it doesn't completely take over the spec, which was what happened back in the day. I just wished this was immediate damage and it was, just explosions. It would feel so much more satisfying than it currently does. So Careful Aim is still very powerful. Then we get this tier here, which we get Chimera Shot. Now, like Explosive Shot, Chimera Shot was such a cool ability back in the day. Every time I pressed Chimera Shot back in Wrath days, maybe Kata days, I don't remember which expansion it was so goddamn satisfying. It was this huge hitting ability. It cleaved, 2 targets, so it felt extra satisfying. And it just hit hard, when you had that ability of cooldown, you just hit it and you knew that pain was about to come. Now, again, I know that everything is about aim shot nowadays, but Chimera Shot just doesn't feel all that good to press. The damage seems way too low, which is something that they may tune, going into beta and stuff like that. But it's simply not very satisfying to press. It's cool having this because, it doesn't cost focus, you can use it on a move, so it kind of has a place, even though it doesn't really have a synergy with the rest of the spec at all. It's just something that, you can press when nothing is going on and you don't want to waste focus and you want to move and whatnot. But it's just kind of boring to press. Right? It doesn't have that impact, and I miss that impact in Chimera Shot, so hopefully they will improve this ability a little bit, because, else it's kind of boring. I still like that we can pick this, but, it feels not as exciting as I think it should be. And then on this one, we get Dead Eye. Now, Dead Eye is a new talent, which is replacing Barrage, but, Barrage was there, so it's actually replacing Volley. And essentially, it's improving our kill shot. Now, this will make your execute windows even more insane, because it gives your kill shot to charges, which is simply amazing. You can maximize that ability more, you can use it more, which is great. And it's also going to make your aim shot recharge 50% faster for 3 seconds. So not only are you going to get more kill shots in your execute windows, you're also going to get even more aim shots. Now, I do gotta say that this alone gets to a point where you get way too many aim shots, especially when you combine with True Shot or say a Bloodlust or something like that. Your aim shot recharges so quickly you cannot realistically use it. So it's kind of silly, but it's also pretty cool because you can use it a lot and you can deal a lot of damage. But numbers might be tuned on there, but either way, I think the idea is pretty cool. You get more kill shots, you get stronger execute windows. At its core is what it's providing, and I think that is pretty cool and pretty good. And these ones are the same. And then on the last tier we get Volley. Yes, Volley is no longer that stupid ass passive that we get in Battle for Azeroth. Like, who the hell got the idea of give the Volley such a cool thematic ability of hunters in a freaking passive on auto attacks? Like, come on. So yeah, you do get a Volley back as a AoE, pure AoE ability on a cooldown. You don't have to channel it or anything like in like in Classic. Just press it and it goes. Like now the effect is not done. There's no sound effect, and I think the effect is kind of odd right now. But yes, it is what you used to love. Big area of effect, big damage. It's on a big cooldown. It also gives you trick shots, so it's pretty good. So provides some extra synergies for you to go, say, for a big aim shot or for a big rapid fire. Straight after that Volley. And the cool thing about Volley is that you have a lot of Covenant abilities which synergize perfectly with that Volley for some really good moments, almost these glory moments with your Volley to just provide a lot of AoE damage. And I really, really, really like that. And it's also improving your AoE overall, like for dungeons and stuff, a lot in comparison to, again, to Battle for Azeroth. You don't have to rely just on trick shots. You do have these big abilities to use in AoE, which is very cool. Now, it is on the last tier talent and is fighting against things like lock and load and calling the shots. Now, you can use this in single target. It actually hits really hard in single target. In fact, it hits almost double the damage of an aim shot. At least, for now, this may be tuned. So you can use it on single target as well, so you're not handicapping yourself too much in like boss fights if you're taking this. But yes, like in pure bosses, calling the shots or even lock and load feel much better than actually picking Volley. But hey, having this is still, again, pretty awesome, especially, again, with our Covenant abilities, which we'll talk about now. So, Covenant abilities. Now, in BM, if you watch my previous video, you might remember me saying, well, this ability is cool, but works better in Marksman. This ability is cool, but works better in Marksman. That is because a lot of our Covenant abilities are catering, or at least to me, they feel that they work the best in Marksman. But maybe that's just me, but that's the feeling I get from it. That's what you're doing mechanically just fits Marksman more. So let's cover the Night Fae ability, Wild Spirits. Now this one is a beautiful ability that we get. It's a big area of effectability, the ability that will apply Wild Mark. So essentially, enters Mark to every target in the zone, and while it's active, each ability that you use against that target, those marked targets, you're gonna get some extra proc damage in form of nature damage, which again looks absolutely beautiful when it's happening. So essentially, this is perfect to combine, again, with your multi-shots, with your ricochets, aim shots, with your rapid fires. So every time you're doing a multi-shot, every time you do an aim shot, you get that damage, and then you get the proc damage from nature damage. Now, when you press Volley, you also get one big hit of that nature damage, but then it stops. I guess if it continue, like every hit of Volley would trigger this nature damage component, could potentially be a little bit too powerful. Would be awesome, would look and feel awesome, but I can see it would be a little bit too powerful. So just getting that one big hit, it's fine. And again, you're gonna use a lot of multi-shots, you're gonna use a lot of ricochets, and that will trigger the buff. I think currently, from what I can tell, when you ricochet, say a rapid fire or aim shot, only the targets that you are actually targeting gets the proc of the nature component damage, the tick, and not all of them. That would be cool if they actually made it work so every target that you ricochet actually gets that little trigger of nature damage. That will make it very good, very cool, and would make this ability extremely powerful for, Mythic Plus and stuff like that, and very satisfying to use, Then we get Resonating Arrow. This ability is very similar to Wild Spirits. Much like it, you're gonna throw this arrow which will mark the area, and it will provide extra crit. So just like Wild Spirits, this is awesome to combine with Volley. So instead of just getting extra damage and that extra nature damage ticks, you're getting extra crit chance on them. So this will also work great with your aim shot ricochets. Crit is excellent for you, so you're gonna get really big aim shots, or an extra chance for really big aim shots when you ricocheting and stuff like that. But you're also getting this thing, which is ignoring the line of sight of the enemies that are inside of that area, which is completely insane. So again, in BM, I mentioned that this would be very good for marksman, because, you know, in BM, you rely a lot on your pets. But here, since you rely only on you for PvP, for certain specific situations in PvE, like dungeons, stuff like that, you can just hide it behind a pillar and just continue your rotation naturally through hiding, you know, through behind that wall. And that can be seen a little bit too powerful, especially in PvP, but, you know, in PvP players can just get out of that, you know, of that area of effect, so it's not a huge deal. But yeah, that's cool. Then we get Flayed Shot. Now, Flayed Shot is my favorite, because essentially it's a new shot that will apply a dot, and as that dot ticks, you might get a proc which will make your kill shot usable on any target. This is the Venthyr Covenant ability. So this feels very powerful for a single target and feels great for a single target. Well, multi-target as well, but, you know, this seems more catered to single target, you know, fights and stuff. Getting kill shot procs just feels great. It might make the spec a little bit, again, a little bit too busy, because you're kind of focusing on aim shots and you focusing on then doing arcane shots and stuff like that, and then you're gonna get this proc kind of messing with your rotation. But once you get used to it, it feels great, because if you're picking something like, what's it called, Deadeye, you know, if you're picking something like Deadeye, when you get this proc, you're also going to get that buff, if it stays that way anyway. So in the middle of the fight, you might get those cooldown reductions on aim shot. That can be extremely powerful, but also extremely enjoyable. And again, kill shots feels satisfying, super satisfying to use, super fun to use. So yeah, this ability gets a nice thumbs up for me. Then we get Death Chakrams from the Necrolords and Maldraxxus Covenant ability. This one is the least interesting one. Essentially, just throw these Chakrams. They can bounce off targets. If you use them on a single target, they will just hit that single target repeatedly, and the more it hits, the more it deals damage, and it also gives you some focus. This one is the most boring one, because even though it's very cool to throw that ability and it's satisfying, and you have some pretty cool modifiers in Torghast to make this really good. Even though the ability is satisfying enough to press, it's fun to look at and stuff like that, it just doesn't really provide any cool synergy like the other abilities do, like, you know, with Wild Spirits, with Resonating Arrow. You can do some pretty cool things with your Volley, you can do some pretty cool things with you know, your ricochets and your AoE damage overall, your multi-target damage overall. With Flayed Shot, you're just getting procs of kill shot, which is pretty self-explanatory as to why that is awesome, and Death Chakrams, you're just getting damage. So yeah, that doesn't feel overly exciting. So yeah, that pretty much covers, you know, Marksmanship, Hunter. Again, at its core, the spec is pretty much playing the same, but you do have a couple of cool toys, you know, like Kill Shot, like the Covenant abilities, which do modify the spec in a way that makes it a little bit more exciting, just like Beast Mastery. We're still missing legendaries and soul conduits, which might add a couple of more modifiers to the spec to make it, you know, a little bit more interesting, a little bit more fun. I know there's a couple of concerns with Marksman, so do let me know down in the comments what ones you have. You know, currently I think the spec is, you know, it's fine. It's not perfect or anything, but it feels fine to me. I think it is what it is. Could it be better? Yes, of course it could be better, but I do like the improved abilities, and I do like the Covenant abilities by quite a lot. I think they work really well for Marksman as contrary to Survival and Beast Mastery. Alright guys, so again, do let me know what you think about current Marksman, your worries, and the cool things that you think about the spec. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.